Yeah, Weavile is definitely one of those interesting Pokemon because it is able to put a lot of pressure with Fake Out, but also it's very frail. So if it can't get the damage off quickly, then it's not going to be able to provide the support that it needs to. And here we are in the battle. On the top of your screen is Fuko Nakamichi from Japan, sending out her Weavile and her Thundurus incarnate form. And on the bottom of your screen is Brendan Zhang from the United States of America with Cresselia and Rotom Wash. I think we saw this from his brother yesterday.
They've been known for using similar Pokemon. I mean, as you expect from a brother duo, they do work together in building their teams. So hopefully this Rotom can succeed where his brother Aaron's Rotom failed and hit a few attacks this time.
Yeah, and speaking of that last battle with Aaron and Ryosuke, the bane of that, the Thundurus, is out on the field also. This time with a little bit more offensive pressure with that Weavile. The Fake Out pressure coming out as well as Taunt or Thunder Wave and Swagger risk coming out from that Thundurus. Very heavy support on both sides, actually, as we've seen that Rotom once before already.
Yeah, probably not a whole lot of damage going to go out here. We do have the Dark-type Weavile against the Psychic-type Cresselia here, but it doesn't really want to mess around with Rotom too much.
Yep, Weavile is going to go ahead and make sure that that Rotom doesn't get a chance to attack and uses the Fake Out on it, while Thundurus is going to go for the Taunt. Going to make sure that Cresselia is unable to use any non-attacking moves, sort of like a Trick Room or a Rest or something like that. Rotom does flinch, but Cresselia does not fall for the bait, goes straight for the Ice Beam on that Thundurus incarnate, and is going to activate the Yachi Berry, which will weaken the damage of that Ice-type attack there, making sure that Cresselia is not doing any damage whatsoever.
That's some impressive bulk on that Thundurus there. It takes almost nothing from the Ice Beam. The Berry helps, but even then, this Thundurus has clearly been trained to be resistant to special attacks, so Brendan's going to have to take that or keep that in mind. He's got two special attackers out right now, so he may want to consider a switch here.
Yeah, it looks, I mean, the Weavile is still a nice juicy target, but it does put some pressure on that Cresselia, and Thundurus probably not going to mind taking any more of those, non-boosted Ice Beams from Cresselia. And we've already seen Rotom isn't as much of an offensive pressure Pokemon as we've seen some other Rotoms be.
Yeah, this Rotom is probably still going to intimidate that Weavile a little bit. Like I mentioned before, the previous turn, Weavile doesn't want to stay in for too long and risk getting burned by a Will-O-Wisp, or even hit by something like Thunderbolt, which will do a lot of damage to a frail Pokemon like Weavile.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough road for Weavile. It usually is. That's why we haven't seen it in as many battles as some of these other Pokemon like Thundurus or Cresselia. Usually it holds the Focus Sash, or it can at least take out one hit there. But it is going to go with the Ice Shard onto that Rotom. It's going to be not very effective against the Water-type Rotom Washing Machine. Does get the priority off, and the Thunder Wave comes out from that Thundurus. That will paralyze that Rotom Wash. Flashbacks to Aaron's match yesterday. Rotom is now paralyzed and it may be unable to move. Also cuts its speed, but it does manage to get its Thunderbolt off, and it is going to continue to target that Thundurus incarnate form there. The Thunderbolt is going to deal not that much damage, but gets its own paralysis back. A little bit of payback for the Thunder Wave on the Rotom, and the Ice Beam comes back again. Brendan is not going to let that Thundurus stick around.
Yeah, perhaps learning a little bit from the way his brother's matches went. In those matches yesterday in the Masters Division, Thundurus just survived for many turns and was able to really be disruptive, and Brendan doesn't seem to want to let the same thing happen to him. Also interesting last turn that Weavile chose to Ice Shard the Rotom, probably expecting a switch in there, but not a very effective turn for Fuko there.
Yeah, and crucially, Brendan is ignoring that Weavile, is not afraid of the threat that it poses. I mean, Cresselia generally trained to be bulky, so even if it does have to take a Dark-type attack from that Weavile, probably going to be sitting pretty healthy, even still.
Daring of him to ignore it, though, kind of tempting fate a little bit, ignoring a Dark-type Pokemon with a Psychic-type out, especially because the most common Dark-type attack for Weavile is Night Slash, a move that has a boosted critical hit rate. So just ignoring it, there's a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong, but it's working out well for him so far. He's with a little bit of a lead here.
And you can see that Thundurus incarnate is going to bounce back, does not want to be giving out any free KOs there. And Scizor now out on the field. And you have to imagine that Cresselia is going to be a little bit afraid now as Beat Up comes out from that Weavile, not the Night Slash, is going to deal good damage to the Cresselia. About a third there, hits 3 times with the Beat Up, as Cresselia does go for the Ice Beam onto where that Thundurus used to be. Hits the Scizor for not very effective damage, just a little bit of chunking there. And the Thunderbolt comes out from Rotom onto Weavile, finally starting to target the Weavile. Going to deal good damage there because of how fragile Weavile is. Ooh, just over half, and Cresselia's taunt finally wears off. So maybe it'll be able to do some more supporting, but now it has to deal with both the Dark-type Weavile and the Bug-type Scizor.
Now, Brendan gets some information about Fuko's team there that's really important too. Beat up from Weavile, not something we usually see, but it probably explains why the Virizian's there. It has the ability Justified, which boosts its attack whenever it's hit by a Dark-type move. So we're learning quite a bit of important information about Fuko's team. Even though the beat up didn't do a whole lot of damage there, it actually probably helped Brendan a lot strategically to figure out what he wants to do in this series.
Yeah, definitely valuable information there, not just about the Weavile, but again, of the Virizian. And we've talked about this all weekend, about how best of threes ultimately come down to games of information. How much do you get out of your opponent? How much do you give back? So you can be prepared for all of the surprises to come. And of course, both these players already played in Swiss, so they're both very familiar with these teams already. But maybe some of those tricks hadn't been brought out just yet. Cresselia does go back, and Escavalier comes out on the field, going to be quite happy to stand up against that Weavile and that Scizor, the two bug steel types out on the field here. And the beat up is going to target Rotom, is going to do much better damage than to that Escavalier, but still not that great. Beat up, not chosen over the Night Slash simply because of that lower damage output. But the Bug Gym, Bug Bite from Scizor, what used to be Cresselia, now Escavalier, is going to deal about 50 damage there. Not enough to make that Escavalier think twice about switching in, while Rotom is fully paralyzed and unable to move.
Fuko gets some nice damage there. Burns the bug gem, but still comes out ahead on the turn. Good for Brendan to get Escavalier in, though. It's great against both of these Pokemon. It's not going to take much damage from Scizor, especially with that bug gem down. And Weavile really doesn't want to fight Escavalier here, so it's likely going to force a switch.
Yeah, but it is a good turn of free damage onto all of Brendan's Pokemon there. Does manage to protect the Cresselia, which is very important, especially with that Thundurus sitting in the back. That Ice Beam will be important to check the Thundurus if it ever decides to come back in. But that Escavalier putting so much pressure onto Fuko right now.
Yeah, it's worth noting too, even though Escavalier isn't going to take much damage from Scizor, it's not going to do a whole lot back either. So those two Pokemon are pretty safe. It's just a matter of dealing with the other two.
And Weavile continues to beat up on poor Rotom. Going to bring it back down to the lower orange there, 39 HP remaining. As Bug Bite does come out from the Scizor to finish off that Rotom. Is going to be able to get the KO there with the critical hit. Just gravy on top of that one. As Escavalier and Weavile are going to... Oh, and it steals the Chesto Berry. Really great information there for Fuko. And the Avoid Megahorn missing that Weavile.
And that's another one of the drawbacks. We're seeing both of the Bug Steels fighting each other here, and they're often considered for the same slots on teams. And one of the advantages Scizor has is that Bug Bite is 100% accurate, but clearly Megahorn is not.
Yeah. Megahorn, not the most accurate move in the game. Unfortunately, does not connect with the Weavile. But Conkeldurr is out on the field now, which can threaten both this Scizor and this Weavile, provided that Scizor isn't carrying any sort of flying type attacks.
Yeah, the other advantage that Scizor has is the priority move Bullet Punch, but it's the priority move of Conkeldurr, Mach Punch, that's probably going to be making the play here. It certainly puts pressure on Weavile, but Weavile doesn't seem to care.
Yep, and Weavile is just going to go for an Ice Punch onto Conkeldurr, get as much damage as possible there, and gets the freeze onto Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr is frozen solid, but the Lumberry comes out from Conkeldurr, cures the freeze. Conkeldurr does not get frozen, but does take an aerial ace from Scizor, has that flying move in its back pocket, and it is going to barely miss the KO. 16 HP, but the Drain Punch comes out from Conkeldurr onto that Scizor. The same type boosted Drain Punch with that Iron Fist ability, going to deal a whole heck of a lot of damage and heal off some of the damage that Conkeldurr just took. And the Megahorn comes out from Escavalier, and it does connect with the Scizor. Scizor is taking a beating this turn, and it does get the KO. Brendan Zhang gets the KO onto Scizor and leaves Fuko in a very bad position.
That's an important knockout there. We just saw aerial ace from it, so Conkeldurr wasn't safe. With that off the field, Conkeldurr's going to have a much easier time trying to help clean up this game, especially threatening the twice week to fighting Weavile with Mach Punch.
Yeah, and that Lumberry paying dividends for Brendan. Defrost Conkeldurr on the very same turn. That could have been very bad for Brendan.
Yeah, he would not have gotten that knockout because of the freeze without the Lumberry, and that's why you use it. It's a great item just to kind of prevent things from going wrong. An important part of getting deep in a tournament like this is that you've got to mitigate the luck factors of the game. There's always probability like misses and freezes, and you've got to do what you can to make sure those bounces go in your favor, and Lumberry helps make that happen.
Yeah, for my money, Lumberry is probably one of the items where if you aren't using it on your team, you'd better have a very good reason why. Escavalier does go back to Brendan, and Cresselia comes out on the field, returns, not afraid of that Weavile still, and Politoed out on the field for Fuko. Conkeldurr is going to detect, hoping to waste a turn, waste one of Fuko's turns. Is going to protect itself from any damage this turn as the Ice Punch comes out into the Protect of Conkeldurr. And the Scald comes out from Politoed into the Conkeldurr as well. Conkeldurr successfully wastes that turn.
A great switch by Brendan there. Not only does he get Cresselia in for free, but he saves Conkeldurr, who's still putting a lot of threat out, even though it's slow. It's got Mach Punch available, and it's difficult just to double target Conkeldurr this turn because there's the threat of Cresselia putting Trick Room up. So just ignoring it is dangerous. So Conkeldurr might get a turn here, even though it probably shouldn't.
Yeah, and as we see Brendan having Cresselia, Conkeldurr, and Escavalier, have to imagine that Cresselia is looking to twist the dimensions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great Trick Room mode. Two of the slowest and most powerful physical Pokemon. So getting Trick Room up would give him a big advantage if he's able to do it here.
Yeah, especially against this Weavile, one of the fastest Pokemon in the game. Of course, the Thundurus in the back has been paralyzed, so its speed will be, comparable to some of these slower Trick Room attackers. But still probably the position that Brendan wants to put himself in here.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to have to be careful about giving Conkeldurr up here just because he's going to have a hard time with Thundurus, with just his Escavalier to do decent damage to it. But
yeah, and the Ice Shard comes out from Weavile, trying to get some damage in before the Mach Punch can come out from Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr does survive the Ice Punch and gets the Mach Punch off and is going to KO that Weavile with that Mach Punch. Gets the KO there, leaving Politoed and Thundurus against Escavalier, Conkeldurr, and Cresselia. The Perish Song comes out from Politoed. In 3 turns, both of these Pokemon will have fainted.
An interesting move there, especially
and
because...
the Trick Room.
Yeah. Brendan still has a third Pokemon. He can switch out of his Trick Room, but Politoed's going to be stuck.
Yeah, Politoed sacrificing itself in 3 turns to make sure that Cresselia and Conkeldurr have to waste some time switching around. As you can see, the Perish counts on each of these Pokemon falling now to 3. Once that hits 0, all Pokemon hearing the Perish Song will faint.
A really daring move by Politoed there, knowing that its time is probably limited now. But it does make it more difficult for Brendan to close this game out because he's got more complicated decisions. If he either has to risk getting stalled out and losing Pokemon to Perish Song or switching a whole bunch of times, which gives her some opportunities to attack even though she's behind.
Yeah, definitely an interesting play, especially since Politoed is her healthiest Pokemon on the field. That Thundurus coming back in, paralyzed and in red health there. Still a threat now that Trick Room is up, and with that Prankster, you can never count Thundurus out.
Yeah, I mean, Thundurus still has the ability to use moves like Thunder Wave, which we've seen the power of all weekend. Even though there's only a small chance of being fully paralyzed, it always seems to come up at just the wrong moment. So Brendan's going to want to do everything he can to avoid introducing that element.
And that's what makes Thunder Wave such a strong ability. In these sort of high-level matches, every turn counts. And if you waste a single turn, it can change the entire battle.
Yeah, it's one of the best moves because it's versatile. Not only does it have that property, but it slows Pokemon down too, so it's also one of the better control abilities in the game.
Yeah, Conkeldurr successfully identifies that it is the greatest threat here. The taunt comes out onto Cresselia a little bit late, too late to stop that Trick Room. But will prevent Cresselia from doing any kind of shenanigans here. But it will not. It will just go straight for the KO onto Thundurus with that Ice Beam. And that is going to get the KO. Thundurus will faint. And Conkeldurr, protected and safe, isn't going to be worried about Politoed, who only has 3 turns anyway because of that Perish Song. Conkeldurr does blow the Scald into this Protect. And the Perish counts falling to 2. 2 turns left for that Politoed.
Now, game 1 looks really good for Brendan here. He's got 3 Pokemon left, and all he has to do is not lose all of them before 2 turns pass. Politoed likely doesn't have any spread moves, so it's actually, unless it has Surf or something, it's not going to be able to keep up with the clock. It's going to faint to its own Perish Song.
Yeah, it would need at least 3 turns to KO all 3 Pokemon on the field without a spread move like a Surf. You can see Cresselia is going to switch out for Escavalier. Does not want to worry about getting Perish Songed in the end, but Conkeldurr is still going to move first thanks to that Trick Room. Does get the Drain Punch off, and is going to deal a whole heck of a lot of damage, over half there, and heal that off once more. Getting it back up to 77 HP, back in the orange. as Politoed is going to go ahead and eat its Citrus Berry and recover off some of that damage. Delicious Citrus Berry. Great for recovering off that damage there. The Scald comes out onto Conkeldurr, and with the Rain, with the Water type boost there, oh! Does not quite get the KO. Conkeldurr, every little bit of that healing from Drain Punch doing work there as it survives with 4 HP.
And some of why Conkeldurr is so frustrating to play against. Not only is it really strong, one of the most powerful physical attackers in the game, but you do have the option of using a move like Drain Punch, which lets it heal and be really bulky as well, rather than Hammer Arm like we saw in Masters yesterday, which is just focused on the offense.
And Conkeldurr, with that last turn of Perish Song, isn't going to go down easy. Switches out for Cresselia, who is going to be back on the field now that he's switched out, is not afflicted by that Perish Song anymore. Escavalier does go for the X-Scissor to attack that Politoed, and Escavalier deals so much damage. Politoed just barely hangs on with a sliver of health there. Does get the Scald off onto Escavalier, but with that Perish Song about to end, this looks like game 1 for Brendan. As the Perish count falls to 0, Politoed faints, and Brendan Zhang of the United States takes game 1.
A decisive victory for Brendan there. He finishes the game with a 3 Pokemon advantage, and that's a little intimidating. You know, we mentioned before that a big part of the finals is, and best of 3 in general is, once you get behind that first game, it's much more difficult to come back.
Brendan Zhang's team, again, is Conkeldurr, Jellicent, Rotom Washing Machine, Heatran, Cresselia, and Escavalier. Game 2 of the 2013 Junior World Video Game Championships. Brendan Zhang at the bottom of your screen is up 1-0. Fuko Nakamichi hoping to come back in this second game of a potential 3-game set. Will be on the top of your screen. Leads Weavile Thundurus. Thinks that everything was right about that lead. And looks like Brendan also agrees. My lead was just as good. Cresselia and Rotom Washing Machine back on the field.
I'm always a little surprised to see the same leads from the losing trainer, especially when a deficit was big like that. But perhaps she thinks she has a different plan this time. Even though she's using the same Pokemon, maybe she'll differentiate her strategy a little bit. We only saw a few moves from both of these Pokemon last game, so there's still more tricks she might have that could improve this matchup for her a little bit.
And the final score was 3-0 last game, but there were a lot of Pokemon just barely hanging on at the end of that. So it is possible that if Fuko is able to play her cards right this time around, she will still be able to come out on top. And we haven't seen the back Pokemon, too. She could still have made changes back there, and so could Brendan, of course. Weavile does go for that standard fake-out opening, is going to make sure that Rotom Washing Machine cannot move this turn, as Swagger comes out from Thundurus Incarnate onto that Cresselia. Swagger, a move that we saw quite a bit of yesterday, is going to raise Cresselia's attack and cause it to be confused. And again, this is why Thundurus is so feared. Rotom is flinched and unable to move thanks to that fake out from Weavile, as Cresselia is confused and is going to use the Ice Beam. Does go through the confusion and is able to hit Thundurus with that Ice Beam. Does activate the Yachi Berry we saw last time, dealing just a little bit of damage, but when you're going up against a Pokemon like Thundurus that's going to just try and paralyze you and confuse you, every little bit of damage counts.
Yeah, and getting rid of the berry is important too. You know, every Ice Beam after this one will do more damage. So Cresselia is probably just going to try to keep whittling away at Thundurus and to get it out of the way here. I do hope that Brendan, if he wants to deal with Thundurus, I think it's important for him to do what he did the first game and try to weaken it quickly, rather than just slowly whittling it down. That was kind of the pitfall his brother ran into. And apparently Thunderwave Swagger is the patented anti-Zang tactic, so hopefully Brendan can figure a way around it.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I'm surprised that Fuko is going with the Swagger lead, considering that we already saw Conkeldurr in the back with Lumberry. Conkeldurr would like nothing more than to eat a Swagger and activate that Lumberry to cure the confusion and get that free attack boost.
It's a really great tool on Brendan's side there, just to make it a little more risky to use the Swagger. You can't just use the move indiscriminately or it might end up helping your opponent, and I think it's really clever of him to have that tool available.
And we see Rotom coming back for that Conkeldurr, possibly hoping to get that Swagger off onto Conkeldurr from Fuko's Thundurus there. Conkeldurr out on the field now, beat up on the way from Weavile. We already saw that not dealing a whole lot of damage to Cresselia last game, but a little bit more with that critical hit, bringing it down to about half HP, a little bit under half, but it will activate the Citrus Berry, which will heal Cresselia back up nicely, back above half HP there. Dealing quite a bit more damage this time around thanks to that critical hit and the 4 times that it hit. And the Thunder coming out from that Thundurus that Conkeldurr is able to avoid. Doesn't get the free swagger, but does not take any damage this turn. Cresselia trying to fight through that confusion. Does not succeed this time. Does hit itself, dealing just a little bit of damage, but more importantly, not being able to move.
It makes sense to see Thunder from Thundurus there. It doesn't work out this time, but it does have a Politoed on the team, which makes the Thunder 100% accurate, so it makes sense that it has it rather than a move like Thunderbolt that just hasn't had the chance to set up yet, so a little risky for now.
And there's Aaron Zhang, Brendan's older brother, on the screen just a second ago, cheering on his little brother in this finals. Conkeldurr out on the field now, doesn't take any status moves actually, now still has the Lum Berry and is going to put immense pressure on that Thundurus with an Ice Punch if it has it.
Yeah, it's a little riskier for Thundurus to try to spam status moves now. We've already seen the Lum Berry and Conkeldurr, so we know it can block it once, and Thundurus probably doesn't want to hang around here and avoid, or risk getting knocked out here, because I think that Thunder Wave Swagger combination is a really important way for Fuuko to deal with Rotom and Cresselia, so losing Thundurus early can make it really difficult to battle back.
Yeah, definitely a great way to pressure that Thundurus and make sure it's not getting any free turns off to paralyze and confuse Brendan's team, just having that offensive pressure from Conkeldurr with that Lum Berry. Great adjustment there. Rotom comes back out as the Thunder Wave comes out from the Thundurus, is going to target the Conkeldurr, blow the Lum Berry. But it will give Conkeldurr a free shot at Thundurus if it chooses to take it. As we see the paralysis coming out and the Lum Berry being consumed. Again, that Lum Berry, for my money, possibly the best item in the game just because of the threat of Thundurus. Beat Up comes back out from the Weavile, is still going to deal some damage to Rotom, but as we saw before, Beat Up not the strongest attack. Mostly for that utility against the Virizion. And the Ice Punch does come out from Conkeldurr, is going to target the Thundurus. Will it be enough to KO from pretty reasonably healthy? It looks like it will be. The super effective Ice Punch does get the KO on Thundurus, and a huge threat out of the way for Brendan.
Yeah, we're just talking about how important of a knockout that would be for him to get, and he's able to get it. So Thundurus no longer around to deal with Rotom and Cresselia, both of which still have a decent amount of health left. So they're going to be big for the rest of this match.
And both of which are really strong against the Politoed that just came out on the field here. We already saw that Politoed can force some switches with Perish Song, but without any way to trap the Pokemon in, Perish Song loses quite a bit of its utility.
Speaking of losing utility, one of the other drawbacks of Beat Up is that it does damage based on the amount of Pokemon you still have remaining on your side. So by getting that knockout on Thundurus, not only has Brendan removed a threat from the other team, but he's also reduced the damage that Weavile can do with its Dark-type attacks.
Yeah, definitely a great thing for that Cresselia in the back. And we do see Politoed protecting itself, does not want to be the target of any damage here, as the Beat Up does come back out from the Weavile onto Rotom, just trying to chip that down, correctly identifying that Rotom is the biggest threat to Politoed right now. That electric typing going to be super effective against the water type. But Rotom, showing some of his tricks, is going to take a little cat nap, go to sleep, heal off all of that damage, and presumably wake right up.
A really great move there. He predicts that Politoed isn't just going to leave himself available to be hit by electric-type attacks, and uses the move as intelligently as he could there and heals up, putting him in a much better situation, especially without Thundurus around to help weaken Rotom a second time. It's going to be really difficult to knock it out.
Yeah, and there is that Chesto Berry waking it back up, as Conkeldurr does try to get the damage done onto Politoed into the Protect. So Politoed does avoid some damage, but more importantly, Rotom is healthy again.
Yeah, one good play by both sides that turn, but Brendan's probably a little bit happier there since, in addition to not taking any damage, he healed a bunch off.
Yeah, and still has immense offensive pressure with both Conkeldurr and Rotom being able to take out both of Fuuko's Pokemon on the opposite field there. Looks like a very good position for Brendan to be in.
Yeah, really challenging if you're Fuuko here. You've got to find a way to make a switch to get yourself in a better position because you've got both of your Pokemon fighting against counters. And while Conkeldurr is slower than Weavile, it does have the option of Mach Punch, so even that's not really the case.
Fuuko with a very gutsy play, leaving that Weavile in against the Conkeldurr, hoping that Conkeldurr isn't going to fight back. Gets the Ice Punch off as the Thunderbolt does connect with Politoed this time, dealing over half HP there, but Politoed will just recover some of that back off with the Citrus Berry. As you can see, Politoed becoming a little bit healthier there, and it looks like the Scald is coming out from Politoed, also going to target that Conkeldurr, trying to get that immense threat off of the field and possibly get a burn with that Scald there. As you can see, it does not get the burn and does not deal enough damage, and the Drain Punch does come out once again to deal good damage to that Politoed and also heal off that Conkeldurr. Politoed just barely hanging on with that red bar there.
A smart play by Brendan there to hit the Politoed with both of his attacks. Since it used Protect in the previous turn, it's much less likely to use Protect this turn. So by putting both of his attacks there, he's almost guaranteeing that he's going to get some damage. And when he's already got a lead like this, all he's got to do is make sure he's making even trades to continue through the game.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Brendan has a pretty commanding lead, but it's very easy on a single turn. If you, as we mentioned before, if you waste a turn, then you can be in trouble. Conkeldurr does go for the Mach Punch, does hit that Weavile, that priority Mach Punch, making sure that Conkeldurr, very slow, does get a chance to move first, does get the Focus Sash out of Weavile as it hangs on by a thread with that Focus Sash at 1 HP. The Ice Punch does come back out, trying to get Conkeldurr off the field because we've already just seen how much damage that Mach Punch can do. It isn't going to be quite enough. Thunderbolt comes out onto the Weavile. Correct prediction again from Brendan. Double targets the Weavile, gets the KO, and a very, very good position. Brendan has been making perfect plays this entire game.
Yeah, he's been absolutely brilliant this game. He's the favorite to win this tournament for years, and he's showing why this game. Like, absolutely amazing performance in this series.
Yeah, and Scizor out on the field now. Fuuko's last best hope against this Rotom and this Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr very low. We already saw that Aerial Ace coming out of the Scizor. Won't want to take any rain-boosted Hydro Pumps from that washing machine, though.
Yeah, also valuable for Scizor here is that it is Bullet Punch, a priority move. So it makes it more difficult for Conkeldurr just to use a Mach Punch on its way out and take out Politoed here. It's important for Fuuko to stop that. It's already a 4-2 advantage for Brendan, and if Politoed goes down without doing anything, it's going to be an almost insurmountable lead.
Yeah, definitely the case there, as we can see Fuuko taking all of the time allotted for her to make this decision. Possibly the game-deciding turn here.
Yeah. It's the mark of a smart player to take your time on a turn like this. I think a lot of players make the mistake of rushing big decisions like this, but this is your season. This is your chance at winning Worlds. You've got to do everything you can to make sure you're making the best decision you can make.
And Conkeldurr is going to detect, not going to let any damage be dealt to it. It wants to stick around with that 26 red blinking HP. With that, you're about to faint music playing. The Conkeldurr does protect itself from the Bullet Punch. Will-O-Wisp does hit Brendan's Rotom, apparently better trained than Aaron on your screen there. Does get the burn onto Scizor, who will now have to deal with reduced attack as well as the damage over time. Politoed does manage to deal some damage back to that Rotom. Good damage there for the not very effective Scald. Oh, the critical hit, there we go. And the burn from the Scald there. Those are the kind of plays that Fuuko will need to get back in this game.
Yeah, a big turn for her there. Ends up doing about triple the amount of damage she probably expected to do, but the burn on Scizor is a big deal. With only 2 Pokemon left and Politoed at such low health, she's really got limited time to try to close this game out here. She's got to be really careful about how she does this. Scizor can only survive 6 or 7 turns, even if it's being ignored here. And Politoed, pretty much one hit from anything, will finish it off. So she needs to be very careful. In addition, the burn reduces Scizor's damage, which is going to make it even harder for them to come back unless you get some more critical hits, which ignore that burn.
And we see the Bullet Punch from that Scizor trying to get the Mach Punch threat out of the way. Does manage to get the KO through the burn. Conkeldurr is going to faint, but it leaves Rotom up to Thunderbolt the Politoed. Politoed is going to go down, and that's another source of damage out of the way, and it's going to be up to Fuuko's Scizor to bring it back home.
Up to a 3-1 advantage for Brendan now. He only needs this game. He's up 1-0 in the series already, so if he can find a way to knock out Scizor, who's burned and slowly its health is going down, he will become the world champion. Has been working at this for years. 2 top 4 finishes in the last 2 years. This could finally be his year.
2 top 4 finishes, countless regionals championships, countless national championships. He's in a phenomenal position to take home his first world championships here as Escavalier comes out to threaten that Scizor as well. The burn on the Scizor, the burn on the Rotom. Really good position for Brendan. And he's been working at this, as you said, for years. You have to imagine that his hands are shaking. Hopefully he's able to select the right moves.
Yeah, you've got to imagine. You can taste it now. Only 1 Pokemon on the other side. It's Burn. He's got Escavalier out, who usually wins that 1v1. He's got to be excited now.
Especially with Rotom able to connect with that Thunderbolt, going to deal extra damage to that Scizor, making sure that even with the burn that he won't be able to survive much longer. Aerial Ace onto the Escavalier is going to deal a little bit of damage, but thanks to that burn, not enough. The X-Scizor comes out onto Scizor. It's going to deal not enough damage for the KO, but the burn damage will be enough, and Scizor is going to fade, and Brendan Zhang of the United States of America will defeat Fuuko Nakamichi and become our first 2013 World Champion in the Junior Division. Congratulations, Brendan.